In this video, we are going to look at the question 8 for the June CSEC math exam for the years 2022 to 2019. Now in our first question, which is question 8 for June 2022, we have a rental company has X cars and Y minivans. So X is the number of cars and Y is the number of minivans. The company has at least 8 vehicles altogether. The number of minivans is less than or equal to the number of cars. The number of cars is no more than 9. Here, for part A, we're going to write 3 inequalities in terms of X and or Y, other than X is greater than or equal to 0 and Y is greater than or equal to 0, to represent this information. Now, just looking at the statement here where they say the company has at least 8 vehicles altogether. Now remember, X is the number of cars and Y is the number of minivans. So the number of cars plus the number of minivans, which is X plus Y, must be at least 8 vehicles. What at least mean? 8 or more. So X plus Y is greater than or equal to 8. And that will be our first inequality. X plus Y is greater than or equal to 8. So I'll label that my first inequality. Then we have that the number of minivans is less than or equal to the number of cars. Now remember, the number of minivans is Y, and the number of cars is X. So that means Y, which is the number of minivans, is less than or equal to the number of cars, which is X. So Y is less than or equal to X. So my second inequality would be Y is less than or equal to X. And then we have that the number of cars is no more than 9. So again, remember that X is the number of cars. So that means X is no more than 9. So X is less than or equal to 9. So our third inequality will be X is less than or equal to 9. So now that we have our 3 inequalities, we have part B here now, where a car can carry 4 people and a minivan can carry 6 people. There are at most 60 persons to be taken on a tour. Now, I just want to note that X is the number of cars and Y is the number of minivans. So that the number of people all the cars would carry is 4 people per car, and X is the number of cars. So 4 times X will be the number of people all the cars will carry. Then you have Y is the number of minivans, and a minivan can carry 6 people. So 6 people per minivan. So 6 times the number of minivans would give you the amount of people all the minivans would carry. Now, so that will be 4 times X, all the people that the cars could carry, plus 6 times Y, all the people that the minivan could carry, and that must be, for the most, 60 persons. So that must be less than or equal to 60. So I'll have 4 times X plus 6 times Y, and that must be less than or equal to 60. Now they want us to show that this information can be written as 2x plus 3y is less than or equal to 30. Now look at what we have here. All these numbers are divisible by 2. So if you divide 4 by 2, you're going to get 2x, 6 by 2, you're going to get 3y, and 60 by 2, you're going to get 30. So we just divide both sides of the inequality sign by 2. And I'll put that across here, where we have 4x plus 6y over 2 is less than or equal to 60 over 2. So that's 4x over 2 plus 6y over 2 is less than or equal to 60 over 2. So divide this by 2 and you're going to get 2x. Divide this by 2, you're going to get 3y. And divide 60 by 2 and you're going to get 30. So we showed that a car can carry 4 people and a minivan can carry 6 people, and there must be at most 60 persons taken on the tour. We show that 2x plus 3y is less than or equal to 30, right here. Now for part C, they say on the grid below, which is the graph paper that they will give us, right? They want to plot the 4 lines associated with the inequalities in A and B. So they want to plot the 4 lines associated with these 4 inequalities here, 3 here, and this one here. All right. Now, before we can plot these lines, we need to work out some information, especially this one and this one, as to how to draw these straight lines. These pretty simple. You don't need to do any working for these two, but these two we need to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept for these 2 inequalities, and therefore we can plot these straight lines on the graph. So first I'll start with this one. X plus y is greater than or equal to 8. So I'll have x plus y is greater than or equal to 8. What I'll be using is x plus y is equal to 8. And I'll say when x is equal to 0, we will have 0 plus y is equal to 8. So y is equal to 8. And therefore our y-intercept would be 0 on the x and 8 on the y. Then we have when y is equal to 0, we'll have x plus y is equal to 8. So x plus y is 0, so 0 is equal to 8. So x is equal to 8. So that will be 8 on the x-axis and 0 on the y. So that would mean your x-intercept would be 8 on the x-axis and 0 on the y. Then we look at this inequality here, the 2x plus 3y is less than or equal to 30. So I'll have 2x plus 3y is less than or equal to 30. So what we'll be using is 2x plus 3y is equal to 30. And again, we put y is equal to 0 and x is equal to 0. So I can start with the x first. When x is equal to 0, we have 2 times x, which is 0, plus 3 times y is equal to 30. Of course, 0 times anything was 0, so 0 plus 3y is equal to 30. So we're going to have 3y is equal to 30. So y is equal to 30 divided by 3. So we're going to have y is equal to 10. So that means our y-intercept would be 0 on the x and 10 on the y. Now here I come in and do the same thing, but that's for y equals 0. So when y is equal to 0, we have 2x plus 3y is equal to 30. All right, but when y is equal to 0, we have the 3 times y, which will be 3 times 0. So 2 times x, 3 times 0 is 0. And now, of course, 0 is nothing, so we're going to have 2x is equal to 30. So x would be equal to 30 divided by 2. So x is equal to 15. So that means our x-intercept would be 15 on the x and 0 on the y. So as I said, these are the two inequalities that we had to do some working for to get the y-intercept and x-intercept for both of them, so that we could plot the straight line and therefore draw the inequality on the graph. The other two, this would just be the line x is equal to 9, and this is the line y is equal to x. You don't do any working to plot these lines. You should know how to plot these lines. So now we'll move on to the grid and plot the 4 lines associated with the inequalities, and we'll shade and label the region that satisfies all 4 inequalities and call that region R. So here I have the grid paper here. I just wrote back my 4 inequalities here. And of course, for this one, I wrote the 2 points that we need to plot to draw a line. These 2 are simple. And for this one, I put the 2 points that we need to plot to draw this line. So let's start with the first inequality. So we plot in 0, 8, and 8, 0. All right, so let's plot this point here first. 0 on the x-axis and 8 on the y-axis. So that's 0 on the x and 8 on the y. That's here. And then we have 8 and 0. So that's 8 on the x and 0 on the y. So that's 8 on the x and 0 on the y. That's down here. So now I'll take my ruler and draw a line to connect these 2 points. And I'm just labeling this line as x plus y is equal to 8, so you know which line it refers to. But for the inequality, we have x plus y is greater than or equal to 8. Now, greater than or equal to 8 will be shading above the line. All right? Now, because we have 4 inequalities, and we have to shade the region for all 4, things can get a little confusing if you shade the right direction. So what we do is we shade the opposite direction. So the common region will be the unshaded area. All right, so we're supposed to shade above the line. What we'll do is shade below the line. So here we have the shading below the line, and as I said, this is the opposite direction as to more than or equal to 8. This is actually x plus y is less than or equal to 8, this region are shaded. But we say we're going the opposite because we have 4 inequalities and we have a shade for all 4, and we want the common region to be unshaded so we can easily recognize it. Okay? So next we're going to go to the inequality y is less than or equal to x. So we'll be drawing the line y is equal to x. Now the line y equal to x is simple. It means whatever on the y-axis, the x-axis must be the same thing. So if y is 1, x must also be 1. So that'll be like this point here, 1, 1. X is 1, y is 1. Same thing, when y is 2, x must also be 2. So that'll be this point here. All right, when y is 3, x must also be 3. So that'll be this point here. So sort of get any hang of it as to what this line is going to look like. Of course, when y is equal to 0, x will also be equal to 0. So that's the origin here. So I'll take my ruler and draw a line connecting these points and draw a line all the way out. So here I have my line y is equal to x, and I've labeled it so that we know that this line refers to y is equal to x, which refers to this inequality here, y is less than or equal to x. Now, less than or equal to x is shading under the line, but we'll do the opposite, so we'll shade above the line. Now, here I have my shading that's above the line. Now, remember, it's supposed to be y is less than or equal to x, so the shading was supposed to be below the line because less than or equal to x. But I'm doing the opposite direction, so that's why I put it above the line. Now we look at our third inequality, which is y is less than or equal to 9. So we'll be drawing the line y is equal to 9. So we look for 9 on the y-axis and draw a straight line coming across. So I have my ruler on 9 on the y-axis, and I'm going to draw a horizontal line coming across. So now I have my line y is equal to 9, and I've labeled it y is equal to 9. And just remember, it's y is less than or equal to 9, so that'll be below the line. Now, because we're doing the opposite direction, we'll shade above the line. And now for my last inequality, 2x plus 3y is less than or equal to 30. So I'll be plotting the points 0 and 10 and 15 and 0. So my first point I'll plot is 0 on the x-axis and 10 on the y-axis. So that's 0 on the x and 10 on the y. That's here. Then my next point will be 15 on the x-axis and 0 on the y-axis. So that's 15 on the x-axis down here and 0 on the y-axis. So now I'll take my ruler and connect these 2 points. So here I have my line that 2x plus 3y is equal to 30. So I'll label it 2x plus 3y is equal to 30. So this will be the line for the inequality 2x plus 3y is less than or equal to 30. So here we have less than or equal to 30. So we have the y on this side. That's important that the y be on this side and is less than or equal to 30. So that means it's shading under the line. But we'll be doing the opposite, which will be shading above the line. So here I have my shading for the fourth inequality. And now this unshaded region will be the region that's common to all 4 inequalities. So this would be our region R. So now I've done exactly what they wanted, to label and shade the region R. As you can see here, they want us to shade and label the region that satisfies all 4 inequalities R. So shade and label. All right, so shade and label. So now for part D, part 1, they want us to determine 2 combinations for the minimum number of cars and minivans that can be used to carry exactly 60 people on the tour. So what we need to do is go back to the graph, and we'll need the coordinates of the vertices of this polygon, that is the region that satisfies all 4 inequalities. So that will be here, here, and these 2 points down here. So this one is 6 on the x and 6 on the y. All right, so at that point that's 6, 6 here. 6 on the x and 6 on the y. Then this point here will be 4 on the x and 4 on the y. So I have the coordinates of this vertice as 4, 4. Now for this vertice, we have 8 on the x and 0 on the y. So that'll be 8, 0. So I wrote my coordinates for the vertice here, 8, 0. And for this last one here, we have 15 on the x and 0 on the y. So I have my coordinate of this vertice as 15 and 0. So before I can answer this question, I'll take note of the vertices of the polygon. So I'll have the vertices of the polygon are, we had 6, 6, 4, 4, 8, 0, and 15, 0. So again, these are the vertices here, 6, 6, 4, 4, 8, 0, and 15, 0. Now, because I want the minimum number of cars and minivans that can carry exactly 60 people on tour, we need to go back to the inequality that deals with the amount of people that we can carry on tour. Now, if we go back to part B, this question deals with how many people the cars plus the minivans can carry. Now, of course, the amount of people that the cars and minivans can carry must be less than or equal to 60. So this inequality here, this 2x plus 3y is less than or equal to 30, deals with the amount of people that can be taken on tour. So you're going to write the 2x plus 3y is less than or equal to 30. Because what we're dealing with here is the combinations for the minimum number of cars and minivans that can be used to carry exactly 60 people on tour. So now remember that this here will be the x coordinate and this will be the y coordinate, and x is the number of cars and y is the number of minivans. Alright, so just remember x, y, x coordinates, y part of the coordinates, x, y, x, y. So now we're going to put these coordinates into this inequality and see which one gives us exactly 60. Now, because we have to put the coordinates into the inequality and see which one gives us exactly 60, it would be best to use this version, which is the 4x plus 6y is less than or equal to 60. So I'll erase this one and write 4x plus 6y is less than or equal to 60. And now let's go to the first one, 6, 6. All right, so I'm using 6, 6. So I'm going to have 4x plus 6y is less than or equal to 60. So we're going to have 4 times 6 plus 6 times 6 is less than or equal to 60. 6 4s are 24. 6 6s are 36. It's less than or equal to 60. So when you add 24 and 36 together, you get 60. So 60 is less than or equal to 60. So using 6, 6, 6 cars and 6 minivans, we get exactly 60 persons. Now let's go the other one, 4, 4. So using 4, 4. All right, so that's 4 on the x, 4 on the y. So we have 4x plus 6y is less than or equal to 60. So replace the x with 4, replace the y with 4, less than or equal to 60. 4 times 4 is 16, 6 times 4 is 24, and 16 plus 24 will give us 40. All right, so we have 40 is less than or equal to 60. Now, this one doesn't give us exactly 60. All right, so this one gives us exactly 60. This one doesn't. And we want the number of cars and minivans that can carry exactly 60 people. So let's go the other one, 8 and 0. So I'm going to put using 8, 0. We have 4x plus 6y is less than or equal to 60. Replace the x with 8 and the y with 0. That's remember because this is x and this is y. All right, so 4 by 8 is 32 and 6 by 0 is 0. So this will give us 32 is less than or equal to 60, which is true. But having 8 cars and 0 minivans doesn't give us exactly 60 persons. All right, so now we're going to use the 15 and 0. All right, so using 15 and 0, of course, 15 is x and 0 is y. We're going to have 4x plus 6y is less than or equal to 60. So we have 4 times x and x is 15, plus 6 times y and y is 0. 4 times 15 is 60. 0 times 6 is 0. So this one's going to give us 60 is less than or equal to 60. So using 15 cars and 0 minivans will carry exactly 60 people. So the answer to this question, where they want us to determine the two combinations for the minimum number of cars and minivans that will carry exactly 60 people, would be this one where we have 6 cars and 6 minivans, and this one where we have just 15 cars and 0 minivans. So that's your two combinations. All right, so here I have that the two combinations that will carry exactly 60 people are the 6 cars and 6 minivans. All right, that's this one here, which will be this here. And 15 cars and 0 minivans, which will be this one here, which is this here. Now here we come to question D part 2, where the company charges $75 to rent a car. Now remember, the number of cars is X. So 75 times X, which is the number of cars, will give you total money to rent the cars. And $90 to rent a minivan. So the number of minivans is Y. So Y times 90 will give you a total amount of money to rent the minivans. Show that the minimum rental cost for this store is $990. So the equation for the rental cost will be 75 times X plus 90 times Y. So I'm just going to put that the rental cost is equal to 75 times X plus 90 times Y. Now, we want to show that the minimum rental cost for this store is $990. Now, the maximum amount of people that can be taken on the tour is 60 people. So we'll be looking at a combination of cars and minivans that will give us exactly 60 people, which will be 6 cars and 6 minivans and the 15 cars and 0 minivans. Using 6, which is the 6 cars and 6 minivans, right? 6 is X, 6 is Y. I'm going to have my rental costs would be equal to 75 times X, which is 75 times 6, plus 90 times Y, which is 90 times 6. 75 times 6 is 450, plus 90 times 6 is 540. And that 450 plus 540 will give us 990. So we already seen that by using 6 cars and 6 minivans, you're going to get the 990. Now we need to check out the other one that will give us exactly 60 people, which is the 15 cars and 0 minivans. So I'm going to say using 15, 0. So 15 is X and 0 is Y. So we have the rental cost, 75 times X, which is 15, plus 90 times Y, which is 0. So 75 times 15 is 1,125, and 90 times 0 will be 0. So this will just be equal to $1,125. So we can see that to carry exactly 60 people, this will cost more than the $990. So that we are saying to carry exactly 60 people, which is the maximum amount of people that you can carry, the cost to use 15 cars and 0 minivans will be way more than to use 6 cars and 6 minivans. So this $990 would be the minimum to carry exactly 60 people, which is the maximum amount of people that you can carry. All right, so I write hence the minimum rental cost is $990. Okay, and that's it for 2022. Let's move on to 2021. So here we have question 8 for June 2021. We have Marla buys 2 types of mobile phones. So we have B-Flow and C-Flex from a retail company. So one B-Flow mobile phone costs $60, while one C-Flex costs $80. So she buys X number of B-Flow. So X is the number of B-Flow phones and Y number of C-Flex phones. So we have Marla must not spend more than $1,200. Write an inequality to represent this information. So if one B-Flow mobile phone costs $60 and X is the number of B-Flow, 60 times X will be the cost of all the B-Flow mobile phones. And if we have one C-Flex costs $80 and Y is the number of C-Flex phones, then Y times 80 will be cost of all the C-Flex phones. Now, if she must not spend more than $1,200, so that means she must spend less than or equal to $1,200, then the total cost for the B flow, which is the 60X, and the total cost for the C flex, which is the 80Y, must be less than or equal to 1,200. All right, so we have 60X plus 80Y must be less than or equal to 1,200. And that will be our inequality. Now here we have that the number of B-flow phones must be greater than or equal to the number of C-flex phones. So the number of B-flow phones is X and the number of C-flex phones is Y. So we're saying that X is the number of B-flow phones must be greater than or equal. So X must be greater than or equal to the number of C-flex phones, which is Y. So we're going to have X is greater than or equal to Y. So they say write down an inequality in X and Y to show this information. So this is our inequality to show the information. Now for part 3, they want us to represent the two inequalities on the grid paper that they'll give us and label as R the region which satisfies both inequalities. Now before we could draw anything for this, we need to go back here and work out what's the X-intercept and Y-intercept for this line. Well, this one is simple, right? We have X is greater than or equal to Y. We'll take that as the line y is equal to, well, x equal to y, which is y is equal to x. So 60x plus 80y is less than or equal to 1,200. Let's go with that. 60x plus 80y is less than or equal to 1,200. So I'll be using 60x plus 80y is equal to 1,200. I'll have when x is equal to 0. We have 60 times x, which is 0, plus 80 times y is equal to 1,200. 60 times 0 is 0. So now 0 is nothing, so we just have 80y is equal to 1,200. So y is equal to 1,200 divided by 80. So y is equal to 15. So that means my y-intercept would be 0, 15. And then we have when y is equal to 0, we have 60 times x plus 80 times y is equal to 1,200. So that'll be 60 times x plus 80 times 0 is equal to 1,200. 80 times 0 is 0, which is nothing. All right, so we have 0 here, 1,200. So that's 60x is equal to 1,200. So now x would be 1,200 divided by 60. So x is equal to 20. So that means my x-intercept would be 20 and 0. Now for this one, x is greater than or equal to y. I'll write that as x is greater than or equal to y. Now, when we deal with the inequality, we always like the y to be first, then the x. So I'll switch this around. So you see that y and we have the small side, and then we have x and the big side is by the x. Let's switch it around. So we have y first. So we have small side by y, and then the big side by x like this. All right. So y is less than or equal to x. And of course, for this one, we draw a line y is equal to x. All right, so this is the grid paper that we're going to use to plot the inequalities. So I'll just come back and take a note of my inequalities and the points that I need to plot for them. So I have my 60x plus 80y is less than or equal to 1,200. And I need to plot the points 0, 15 and 20, 0. And of course, I need to draw a line y is equal to x for this inequality, y is less than or equal to x. So starting with this one, we're going to plot 0, 15. So that's 0 on the x, 15 on the y. So that's here, 0 on the x, 15 on the y. Then we're going to have 20, 0, 20 on the x and 0 on the y. All right, so that's down to this last point down here, 20 on the x and 0 on the y. So I take my ruler to connect the 2 points, and I'm going to draw a straight line now. So here I have my line, which represents the 6 to x plus 8 to y is equal to 1200. And now seeing that we have the 6 to x plus 8 to y is less than or equal to 1200, that'll be shading below the line. We'll do the opposite because we have more than one inequalities and we want to know what is the common region. So I'll shade the opposite direction. So less than or equal to will be under the line. I'll shade the opposite direction, which will be above the line. All right, so here I have my shading, which is above the line, which is the opposite direction of the inequality. All right, so now for this one, we're going to draw a line y is equal to x. And as you know, for that, if we have 5 on the y-axis, it will line up with 5 on the x-axis like that. Y is equal to x. Also 0 on the x with 0 on the y, so that's the origin. 0, 0. 10 on the y with 10 on the x, so that's right here. And so on. So I'll take my ruler and connect those points and draw a straight line all the way out. All right, so now that I have my line y is equal to x, put my label here, y is equal to x. We have y is less than or equal to x. So that will be shading under the line. And because I have more than one inequality on the same graph, I'm going to shade the opposite direction, which will be above the line. So now looking at this graph now, the unshaded region will be the common region. What we're going to do is put a label R for the region that satisfies both inequalities. So this unshaded region here would satisfy both inequalities, so we label this R. So I've labeled the region R and shaded it as well. So for part 4 here, we're saying that the total number of mobile phones is represented by x plus y. According to the graph, all right, so that's the graph that we just drew. What is the largest possible value of x plus y? So we need to go back and look at the graph and see what's the coordinates for the vertices of the polygon. So looking at this point here, we'll need to figure out what each little block will represent. So we see we have, from here to here, we have 5 units. So each centimeter is 5 little blocks. So 5 by 4 is 20. So we have 20 little blocks for 5 units. Same thing on the x-axis here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 20 little blocks for every 5 units. All right, so we need to put the amount of units over the amount of blocks. So that's 5 divided by 20 blocks. All right, so I'll just put that here. 5 divided by 20, which is 0.25. This is the unit. And this is the number of blocks. If you multiply 0.25 by 5, you'll get 1.25. So each centimeter is 1.25. So if we start here, we'll have 6.25. Then here will be 7.5. And then here will be 8.75. All right, that should cover it. All right, so we're looking at this point here. So it's just below 8.75 on the y-axis, just below 8.75. And each little block is 0.25. So if you take away 0.25 from 0.75, you get 0.5. So that's 8.5. Now let's check the x-axis. So same thing here, you'll have 6.25. This will be 7.5, and this will be 8.75. And if you check this point, it's just a little after the 8.75. So again, take away 0.25 from it, and you'll get 8.5. So you're looking at 8.5 and 8.5. All right, so this vertice here. All right, so I'll have this coordinate here as 8.5 and 8.5. Now this one is simple. This is 0, 0, and this is 20, 0. All right, so now I'll go back to the next page and take note of these vertices, which is 8.5, 8.5, 0, 0, and 20, 0. So my vertices are 8.5 and 8.5, 0, 0, and 20, 0. Of course, this is X, this is Y, X, Y, X, Y. So now we've seen that the total number of mobile phones is represented by X plus Y. So now total number of mobile phones is equal to X plus Y. So I'm going to put using 8.5 and 8.5. We'd have total phones would be equal to X plus Y, which would be 8.5 plus 8.5. 8 and 8 is 16 plus the 0.5, that's 17. So that's 17 phones. All right, we have using 0, 0. We have total phones. Well, this one's easy. That'll be equal to X plus Y, which would be 0 plus 0. So that's just 0. All right, this is phones. Phones. And then using 20, 0. All right, so this is X, this is Y. All right, we have total phones is X plus Y, which is 20 plus 0, which is 20. All right, so according to this, the maximum number of phones would be 20 phones. Now remember, X is the number of B-flow phones and Y is the number of C-flex phones. And the same Mala buys 2 types of phones. So she buying 2 types. All right, so she must have at least one of each. So when it comes to this 20 phones here, this is only 20 of X, which is 20 B-flow phones and no C-flex phones. But she had to buy at least one C-flex phone. All right, so let's go back to our graph now. All right, the maximum number within this shaded region, the maximum number of phones is 20, and that's 20 B-flow with 0 C-flex. So if you just drop it by 1 to say 19 phones, would that fall within the shaded region? And this would be 16.25. This would be 17.5. And this would be 18.75. So we can't just have 20 B-flow phones. You'd end up having 18 B-flow phones and 1 C-flex. So that'll get 19 phones in total. Now let's see if the shaded region satisfies that. 18X and 1Y. So clearly 18 on the X-axis is within the shaded region, and 1 on the Y-axis would be within this region here. So we can have 18 B-flow and 1 C-flex. So I'm going to put the max number of phones would be equal to 20. So the max number of phones with at least one C-flex phone is equal to 19. So moving on to part B, we have the table below shows the pairs of values for the function y is equal to x squared plus x take away 4. Now usually in a question like this, you have some of the values for y that's been missing. But in this question, they give you all the values for y. So what they wanted to do for part 1 is on the grid paper provided, they wanted to plot the remaining 4 points and draw the graph of the function. Now, looking at the grid paper that they provide, we have points for -4, -3, -2, -1. So the remaining 4 points will be from 0 to 3. So I've just shaded the section that we need to plot on the graph from 0 to 3. So coming across here now, I have a small version of the table. And of course, we are plotting the remaining 4 points that's shaded here. So let's go with 0 and -4. So that's 0 on the x and -4 on the y. So that point will be right here. Then we are plotting 1 on the x with -2 on the y. So 1 on the x is here and -2 on the y will be here. Then we are plotting 2 on the x with 2 on the y. So 2 on the x is here, going up to 2 on the y, which will be right here. Then we have 3 on the x with 8 on the y. So we have 3 on the x here, go all the way up to 8 on the y, which is right here. Now going back to look at the question for part 1, they say that they want us to plot the remaining 4 points and also draw the graph of the function y is equal to x squared plus x take away 4 between the x values of -4 and 3. So that means we have to connect the points to draw the graph. So what we have to do here now is make a freehand smooth curve to connect these points. So there you have it. I've connected all the points freehand to draw the graph. So now let's move on to part 2, where they want us to write down the maximum or minimum value of the function. Now, when the function is like this, like a valley, it will have a minimum value. When it's like the mountain, it will have a maximum value. So the minimum value is the lowest y value that the function can take. Now, if you look down here, this is the lowest point on the graph, and the lowest y value would be just under -4. Now, this graph here is in the shape of a parabola, and this is what we call a minimum curve. It's a minimum because at this point is the lowest point on the graph. Therefore, we'll have a minimum value for y. These 2 points here, yes, they stop at 8. But if you were to increase the x values, like say going 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or go less than -4, which are like -5, -6, and so on, this line will keep going up and this line will keep going up. So for the function itself, there isn't any upper limit for the y values, but the function cannot go lower than this value down here. So therefore, we have a minimum value. It's just under -4. Now we have 5 little blocks to make up 1 unit. So each little block is 1 over 5, which is 0.2. So 1 block after -4 is -4.2. And then this block here will be -4.4. So we'll have the minimum value of y is -4.4. Now moving on to part 3, they say using a ruler, draw the axis of symmetry on the graph. Now the axis of symmetry would be a vertical line that will cut this graph in 2 equal parts. So this line here would be the axis of symmetry. It's between 0 and -1, so that'll be -1/2 on the x-axis. And we'll draw a line from the minimum point on the graph straight up like this. And of course, this line would be x is equal to -0.5. All right, and that's it for question 8 for June 2021. Let's move on to June 2019. So here we have question 8 for June 2019. We have the functions f and g are defined by f of x is 9 over 2x plus 1, and g of x is x take away 3. Now for part 1, we want to state a value of x that cannot be in the domain of f. So this is the function f of x here, and we know the value of x that cannot be in the domain is the value of x that's not mapped, or the value of x for which the function is undefined. So that will mean taking the denominator and putting it equal to 0 and solving for x. So we'll have 2x plus 1 is equal to 0. Now we're going to solve for x, so transfer the positive 1 across the equal sign, and we'll have 2x is equal to -1. Then we have 2 multiplied by x. When you transfer the 2 across, the operation will change from multiplication to division. And we have x is equal to -1 divided by 2. So x equal to -1/2 would be the value of x that cannot be in the domain, or the value of x for which the function is undefined. All right, so I made my little statement here that x equal to -1/2 cannot be in the domain of f. Now moving on to part 2, the question says find, in its simplest form, expressions for Part A, f g of x. So let's go with part A here. F g of x would mean to put the function g of x into the function f. So we're going to look at the function f of x, and wherever we have x, we're going to put the function g of x. So the function f of x reads 9 over 2 times x, and where we have x, we're going to put g of x. So that's 2 times x, which is 2 times g of x, plus 1. So plus 1 now. So now for the g of x, we'll say what is g of x, which is x take away 3. So what we're going to put here is 2 times x take away 3. So we're going to have 9 over 2 times, open brackets, x take away 3, because that's what g of x is. And then plus 1. So now we'll have to expand the brackets by multiplying 2 by x and 2 by negative 3. So we have 9 over 2 times x is 2x. All right, that's multiplying 2 by x like this. And of course, 2 times negative 3 like this would be negative 6. All right, and then pull out the plus 1. And now negative 6 plus 1 would just be negative 5. So this will be equal to 9 over 2x take away 5. And this would be your expression in simplest form for f g of x. Now moving on to part 2b, they want us to find in simplest form expressions for f inverse x. So let's put back what f of x is here. So to find f inverse x, we are going to let y be equal to f of x. Which will mean y is equal to 9 over 2x plus 1. Then we're going to interchange x and y. So that means wherever you have y, you're going to put x, and wherever you have x, you're going to put y. So you're going to have x is equal to 9 over 2 times y plus 1. And then we're going to transpose for y. All right, so what I could do is put this x over 1 so we can cross multiply. So I'll have x over 1 is equal to 9 over 2y plus 1. So now multiplying x by 2y plus 1, we will get x, open brackets, 2y plus 1. And now multiplying 1 by 9 will just give 9. So now expanding the brackets here, x by 2y would be 2yx, and x by 1 would be x, and that'll be equal to 9. So now what we'll do is we transfer this positive x across first, and that will turn to negative x. So we have 2yx is equal to 9 take away x. And then we can transfer this 2 and x across, because this is 2 multiplied by y multiplied by x. So the operation between the 2, y, and x is multiplication. So I move the 2 and the x across, the operation will change to division. So I'll have y is equal to 9 take away x divided by 2x. And now this would be an inverse function. So f inverse x is equal to 9 take away x over 2x. So part B of this question now, we have the diagram below shows two rectangles, A, B, C, D. So that's the big rectangle here, A to B to C to D, and G, F, E, D. So this is a smaller rectangle, which is G, F, E, D. Now the rectangle ABCD has an area of 44 centimeters squared. Now you know the area of a rectangle is length by width or length by breadth. So this rectangle here, ABCD, the length would be from A to D or B to C, and that length would be 3x plus 4. And the width would be AB or DC, which is 3x plus 2. Now we're saying that rectangle GFED has sides 4 centimeters and 2 centimeters. So that's the length of the smaller rectangle here is 4 and the width is 2. All right, and here they're saying that AG is equal to EC, which is 3x. So that's the AG here, 3x, and the EC here is also 3x. Now part 1. By writing an expression for the area of the rectangle ABCD, so that's the big rectangle, we want to show this quadratic equation here x squared plus 2x take away 4 is equal to 0. So that will mean saying length by width or length by breadth is equal to 44. So first I'm going to write that the area of rectangle ABCD is equal to 44 centimeters squared, and the area of a rectangle is equal to length by breadth. So that would imply that length by breadth is equal to 44 centimeters squared. And as we said, the length of ABCD was equal to 3x plus 4 centimeters, and the width or breadth of ABCD was equal to 3x plus 2 centimeters. All right, so that's the 3x plus 2 here and the 3x plus 4 here. Length, width, or breadth. All right, so what we have is the length is 3x plus 4 multiplied by the width or breadth, which is 3x plus 2, which will be equal to 44. So now we'll have to expand this binomial. So we have 3x by 3x is 9x squared. Then we have 3x by 2, positive 2, 3x by positive 2, which is positive 6x. Then we have positive 4 by positive 3x, which is positive 12x. And then we have positive 4 by positive 2, which is positive 8. And that will be equal to 44. Now for your like terms, that will just be 6x and 12x. When you add them together, you'll get 18x. So you'll have 9x squared plus 18x plus 8 is equal to 44. And now what I could do is notice that this quadratic here is equal to 0. So what I could do is bring this 44 across the equal sign, so nothing will remain on the right-hand side, and that's how you get a 0. Now this is positive 44, so when it goes across the equal sign, it will turn to negative 44. So I'll have 9x squared plus 18x plus 8 take away 44 is equal to 0. And of course, 8 take away 44 is negative 36. So we're going to have 9x squared plus 18x, and the 8 take away 44 is negative 36, and that's equal to 0. Now notice, this here is not what they have here. All right, we have 9x squared and they have x squared. We have 18x and they have 2x, and we have negative 36 and they have negative 4. Now what I would notice here is that all three terms on the left-hand side is divisible by 9. So if I have to divide both sides of the equal sign by 9, of course, if you divide 0 divided by 9, that will give back 0. And this 9x squared divided by 9 will give you x squared. All right, this positive 18x divided by 9 will give you 2x. And this negative 36 divided by 9 will be negative 4. And of course, 0 divided by 9 would be 0. So notice that you'll get a quadratic equation that they asked you to show by dividing both sides of the equal sign by 9. So I'm just going to come across here and write it properly. So I'll have 9x squared plus 18x take away 36 divided by 9 is equal to 0 divided by 9. So that will give you your x squared plus 2x take away 4 is equal to 0. Now for part 2 of this question, they want us to calculate at 3 decimal places the value of x. Now this here is a quadratic equation, and from its time to say write your answer to 3 decimal places, I already know that you probably wouldn't be able to factorize this. So I'll go straight for the quadratic formula. So let's write back my quadratic, which is x squared plus 2x take away 4 is equal to 0. Write my values for a, b, and c. So a would be 1, that's the number in front of x squared. B would be 2, which is the number in front of x. And c would be negative 4, which is your constant. Now the quadratic formula is usually given on your formula sheet, so you should see it reading as x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared take away 4ac all over 2 times a. So let's put in those values now. So we have negative b is what, 2. So we have negative Place the b at 2, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that'll be 2 squared. Take away 4 times a, and a is 1, times c, and c is negative 4. I'm going to have all over 2 times a, and a is 1. So this negative sign by 2, that's give you negative 2, plus or minus. This 2 squared is 4. This negative 4 by 1 is negative 4. By negative 4 is positive 16. All over 2 times 1, which is 2. So this 4 plus 16 will give you 20. So we have x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 20 all over 2. So now we're going to use the plus or minus sign here now. So you're going to have either x is equal to negative 2 plus the square root of 20 over 2, or x is equal to negative 2, take away the square root of 20 over 2. And we can just work that out on our calculator. All right, so looking at the first one, we have negative 2 plus the square root of 20. We can just press the equal sign, get the answer, and then divide it by 2. And let's convert that to decimal. So that'll be 1.236. So writing this to 3 decimal places, that'll be 1 here, 2, 3. So the 6 is the 2 decimal place. So after that is a 0. Therefore, the 6 remains the same. So the answer will be 1.236. So we have 1.236. All right, and now going with the second one, we have negative 2. Take away the square root of 20. Press equal sign, get the answer for that. And then divide it by 2. Convert that to decimal. So that'll be negative 3.236. Again, the 6 here will be 2 decimal place. After is a 0. So we stop by 6 and 6 remain the same. So you have negative 3.236. So the answer here is negative 3.236. And of course, these are your answers to 3 decimal places. Now, what we have to remember here is that x has to do with the length of a side. If you look at this diagram here, we have 3x, we have 3x. So since x is a length, x cannot be negative. So therefore, x would just be 1.236 centimeters. So we have, since x is a length, x cannot be negative. Therefore, x is equal to 1.236 centimeters. And now the last part of the question will be to calculate the perimeter of the unshaded region. So this here will be the unshaded region. So this distance here will be 2 plus 3x. This will be 3x plus 4. This will be 3x. This will be 4. And this will be 2. All right, so let's write that in, that this top piece here will be 3x plus 2 centimeters. This length here would be 3x plus 4. Centimeters. Of course, this distance is 3x. This here is 4. That's from here to here. And of course, this distance here is 2. And then this distance here is 3x again. So the perimeter would be, so the perimeter is equal to the distance around, which is the 3x plus 2, plus the 3x plus 4, plus the 3x plus 4 plus 2 plus 3x. So now what we can do is simplify this expression. We can bring all our x's together. So we have 3x here, 3x here, 3x here, and 3x. So that'll be 3x plus 3x plus 3x plus 3x, which is basically 3x by 4, which is just 12x. So I can write one time that this is equal to 12x. And then we have the constants positive 2 plus 4 plus 4 plus 2. So that'll be positive 2 plus 4 plus 4 plus 2. And 2 plus 4 is 6, plus 4 is 10, plus 2 is 12. So that'll be plus 12. And now we can just replace the x with what we have here, x is equal to 1.236. So we'll have 12 times x, which is 12 times 1.236 plus 12. All right, so you can just type that into the calculator. We'll have 12 open brackets, 1.236 close brackets plus 12. And that will be equal to, let's convert to that decimal, 26.832. So that's equal to 26.832 centimeters. And that's it for this video.